My name is John Hooton. I'm Assistant Vice President for Institutional Relations at Claremont Lincoln University. This is the inaugural meeting of the first cohort of the Ethical Leadership Program at Claremont Lincoln University. We call this the Gathering, where all the students come together with the faculty and get to meet each other. It's an entirely online program.
This degree, ethical leadership, means living with ethical conduct, not just at home, not just at the church or at the mosque or at the synagogue, but bringing the values that we believe in to our work environment as well. My name is Jihad Turk. I'm serving as president of Bayan Claremont.
We're rubbing shoulder to shoulder, whether we're in business, academics, any sort of profession, with people who come from vastly different cultures, different religious backgrounds and traditions. My name is Mark Parsons. I am Vice Dean at Claremont School of Theology. Ethical leadership is having a long-term vision.
Ethical leadership is not only what you do in the workplace. To be an ethical leader, you have to be globally conscious. You have to know how the world interconnects.
We talk about global companies. The ethics differ from place to place. I'm Matthew Mengerink. I work at eBay Inc. at a division called Magento or X.commerce. So if we look at eBay, we see this one as an extraordinarily successful example. Pierre Midyar, who's the founder, said, people are basically good. And if you trust in those ethics, we have sellers who are in India who can sell to somebody in China. And because the ethics are so similar from country to country, we find that business actually does flourish when just trust is in play.
In pursuing my human resources, I've seen how bad leadership affects people in a negative way, and I want to be a leader that motivates people.
What sets this program apart is it begins with personal awareness, understanding your own emotions, how you react in situations, so that when you're working with people, you know how to be a person of ethics and a person of character.
What is unique, I think, in this program is helping people in leadership roles to understand how to work across those differences to make the world a better place, a more ethical place through their leadership.
We decided not to do a lecture here tonight. We decided to have a conversation, a series of 5 questions with Matthew Mengerink. We feel that Matthew Mengerink has demonstrated ethical leadership in his role at eBay.
The really difficult part of ethical leadership is defining what is ethics. And fundamentally, you could say right or wrong by whose standard. For me, it means true to my values. It means true to decent living.
Matthew Mengerink is a lifelong friend of mine. He's a deeply ethical person and a very successful leader within his profession in the high-tech industry.
He started an international nonprofit called the Give Light Foundation that helps create and raise funds for orphanages in high-crisis areas, such as places of war, places of natural disaster. And he has the opportunities to not only develop new products for the internet, but also to develop young children around the world. So we'll have a conversation with him. We'll be asking him some questions.
I hope that people will learn that they can wear their ethics on their shirt sleeve, they can live true to their value, and actually succeed within a business context.
Something we hold very dear is the idea of community and the idea of how do we build community in an online environment. And so the idea of the gathering, a physical coming together for us to get to know each other. Matthew Mengerink, he's worked with PayPal and Half.com and eBay. And I heard him say once that he's one of the rarities in Silicon Valley that's actually stayed at the same company for 18 years. On top of that, he's also joining the board of Bayan Claremont. Please help me make welcome Matthew Mengerink. So first question. Yes, please. What do you do and why does it matter?
As he said, I'm the Chief Technology Officer for X.commerce or Magento, and we create a commerce platform for merchants. There are 7 million sellers on eBay and 1 million who make a full-time living off of selling goods. If we look at Magento, we have 150,000 merchants worldwide, and these can be people who are individuals in India who are doing small crafts and popping up a store, to something like Pete's Coffee or Mothercare. eBay spends $2 billion a year on technology, $1 billion a year on marketing, and we determined that we could create a platform and acquire that to help these merchants to grow their businesses and to provide the technology and the consumer experience that allows them to be merchants and to compete against a behemoth out there. So what we like to think is that we really are out there helping to protect jobs, to create new opportunities, and not just domestically, but worldwide.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So question number 2.
Yes.
I feel like Bob Barker or something. What is sacred to you?
childhood would be something that I would find in that sacred element. I think about my children and the protection of their innocence at a certain age. That conveys within Give Light as well. My stepfather raised me. He asked me, why do people lie? And I was like 10 years old, so this was a bit of a mean question to be asked at 10 years old. And I'm like, I don't know how to get out of trouble. He said, yeah, okay, that's probably a little bit more for kids. If you're an adult and you're lying, you're usually trying to get something you don't deserve, something you haven't earned. And he somehow equated truth and life together and property. He went a little bit Ayn Rand, which was too much for me, and I'm not into property rights that way. We parted ways philosophically at a certain point in time. But I held on to this part about truth and this notion of value.
Question number 3. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Superlatives are always so hard, right? Many great pieces of advice. One that pops to my mind was about communication. I used to speak very rapidly. There was a man, David, who said, Matthew, when you speak very rapidly, you are like throwing little pebbles. No one word is too sharp, no one concept too hard to grasp. But when you throw them this quickly, they kind of assault you. That affected me. I was very sad that day, and I was like, oh, geez, I've got to slow down, I've got to slow down. But of course I didn't. I was assigned to learn how to speak publicly. And finally, it was this woman named Lainey, and she was a speech coach, and she came in and said something different. She said, Matthew, do you think it's hard to present and to give speeches? And I said, oh yeah, being up on stage, it's terrifying and it's really hard. Okay. And then I said, and writing the darned thing, I mean, oh my gosh, to get all those concepts down on paper, that's really hard. She said, no, in a presentation, the hardest thing to do is to be the listener, to absorb all these concepts, and you have no mercy on your listener. So breathe and show them some mercy. And fundamentally behind all of those things, and this has been a repetition of a theme, is to think about the other person and what they're receiving when you're communicating.
So when did an ethical decision cost you the most?
In a business context, you oftentimes have to make decisions to hurt another human being. You're fired. In my own career, suffered with being too ruthful. And as an executive, oftentimes you have to make a decision faster. And I lean towards grace and growth and try to give people multiple chances. But the balance of human contribution and a notion of accountability and consequence, there it's a conflict of ethic. What's ethical, what's right, that allows these merchants to grow their businesses with the rights of other humans.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So number 5, what would you change in the world if you could?
If you think about it in the context of an orphanage, there are 40,000 children who are orphaned in a day. Sorry. Hard to go back to that place. But the loss of a parent and the loss of comfort for a child is remarkably painful. And the scars, thank you, they last for a very long time. There's a biblical concept of the sins of the father last for 7 generations, and I don't know that I look at that in a sin, but I interpret it as the consequences can be generational. And children who don't have love and security grow up to have a very difficult time to provide that for others. To be able to have a world in which people have security and hope that's maternal and paternal at the same time, I think it would be the underpinnings for much of those other concepts.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let's express our gratitude. Yeah. We have time for a few questions. Kathy.
Sure, I'm Kathy Curtis. I currently work at Southern California Edison. I work right now in the crisis communications space. How typical are you of upper management in the high-tech industry?
I'm told I'm atypical, period. So the ethics of eBay, I think that it just comes from the founder, and that's so true in many companies. Pierre Omidyar is our founder, and he's a phenomenally ethical person. And he has a phrase which I adore, which is, do well by doing good. Oftentimes, with startups especially, you're just so maniacally focused on an idea that if you fail to keep sight of it, you just fail, period. And the competition is so fierce that people get a little bit absorbed. And I wouldn't consider them unethical. I would say that they're just innovators and passionate innovators in a moment.
I'm Karen Clark-Christine, and I spent more than 20 years in journalism, primarily as an editor, and at one point edited religion and ethics. And so I wonder what your foundation does for adult children who have been orphaned. How do you intervene or heal or equip folks to carry on?
We haven't gotten into the adult context yet. We started after the Indonesian tsunami, so it's 7 years old. We're at 1,000 orphans worldwide right now. And we're just now getting the first child who's gone through college and graduated, done very, very well, which is remarkable. The founder, Dion Alian, was from PG&E and treats us like a business. And she's the only person I know who fires volunteers, and regularly. Don't work hard enough, she's like, you're out. And like, but I'm volunteering. She's like, hey, these are children. There's a line of people who want to help. So what we did in the orphanage context is we designed the orphanage to have 4 children to a room. And that allowed us to have some efficiencies which we needed, but also to create some intimacy within the children. And basically saying, with a family context around them, they can do well. And then what we do is we try to work to get them into college. So we're now trying to figure out that very question, which is, how do you keep people attached through their life to the orphanage that helped them? And we don't have answers yet.
What sparked your interest in orphans, at the risk of weeping?
Oh, God. I thought the orphans again. I think in an Islamic context, there's a statement of Muhammad's, which was, the one who takes care of an orphan and I are like this on the day of judgment. My stepfather was a thoughtful person, raised us thoughtfully and supported us, but was a stoic German guy, and the only time I ever remember him saying, I love you, was one day before he died. But I think really fundamentally, it's just that capability to relate to that pain and just not want for that and to help them.
Thank you very much. Got a little something for you.
Very gracious, thank you.
But there's something here that all the students are getting. This is a membership pin right here.
Ah.
So, there you go.
Beautiful, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you. Tonight was an amazing night. A little bit of disclosure that I thought would happen, I think amped up times 10. If I look at this program and I think about the cross-cultural, cross-religious sort of aspirations, I think this is a great seed. Comprehension and knowledge just can change the most fundamental of upbringing, the most fundamental of opinions. And seeing this audience is wonderful, but to see it multiply by 10, 100, 1,000, and to propagate out is an exciting prospect. And I think that they're onto something with this program, so can't wait to see it blossom. As a Muslim, just to have a place where my children can grow up and not have that terrorist label or not be looked at with that kind of like, oh, if you're Muslim, ooh, you're creepy and weird. It was very compelling, and so I just had a lot of hope for this institute.